So this is a president, certainly, who is now very outward-looking, who is concentrating heavily upon building strong ties with key U.S. allies, and is also sending, I think, the right messages to America's enemies, stretching from Russia to Tehran to North Korea. So I do think that the president's record in the first 100 days certainly has surprised, confounded many of his sharpest critics, and has been welcomed by those who believe that, you know, American leadership really does matter on the world stage.
If you were to compare then President Obama to President Trump and their respective 100 days in office, who comes out top? Who actually is the best leader of the free world?
Well, they have very, very different outlooks, and I would certainly argue that President Trump's foreign policy is bolder and stronger than President Obama's. And this is ironic, considering that President Obama went into the Oval Office as somebody who was supposed to, you know, restore America's standing on the world stage. He's an internationalist figure. But actually, I think that President Obama reduced America's footprint on the world stage. And at the end of the day, we saw a withdrawal, actually, of American global power under the Obama era, whereas with President Trump, we're actually seeing a far bigger U.S. footprint internationally, whether it's in Asia, the Middle East, or in Europe.
Interesting you mentioned the international perspective. From that perspective, Donald Trump was such an unknown entity before he took to the Oval Office. Do you think the fear factor has now gone and that international allies really have the measure of the man? They understand what they get with Donald Trump?
I do think that there is a great deal of trust now in the U.S. presidency. I think that, you know, there was an erosion, actually, of trust in the United States under the Obama presidency. Many U.S. allies felt that they had been either thrown under the bus or couldn't count upon the United States. And I do think with the new U.S. administration, actually some of that trust, or a lot of that trust, is actually being rebuilt, and that's a very, very positive sign. So certainly I think the nervousness that you saw in many European capitals a few months ago has largely evaporated, actually, with regard to especially Donald Trump's much more robust stance now on NATO, and also in opposition to Russian aggression in Eastern Europe.
So he's built trust with allies on the outside, but on the inside there's still a certain amount of turmoil, I suppose, within his inner circle. The Russia scandal is still looming. We've had so much disquiet between President Trump and his own intelligence community as well. Does he now have the right people around him to make good policy decisions going forward with foreign affairs?
Yeah, I think he does. I think it's most important to look at the big picture team that he has in place with regard to U.S. leadership on the world stage. General Mattis, Rex Tillerson, Nikki Haley, the new U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, a real rising star. So I think you do have a very, very competent foreign policy team in place, and they're all believers in the strong projection of U.S. power internationally. And I think that, you know, Donald Trump has many decades of experience of hiring people, and I think he's chosen very well overall, actually, with regard to the foreign and national security team that's in place now.
North Korea has been very much centre stage today, certainly at the United Nations, with Rex Tillerson speaking there. 100 days ago, would you have expected that North Korea would be a priority for the Trump administration?
North Korea, of course, always looms large, but I don't think that we necessarily expected perhaps the North Korean issue to be so much front and center as it is today. And without a doubt, I think that President Trump has been perhaps a lot more aggressive than many people expected. And he certainly put Pyongyang on notice. And I think this is also having an impact upon Tehran, Moscow, and a number of other adversarial powers across the world. And I think that's a good thing to put them on notice.
And just finally, Niall, his approval rating, Donald Trump's approval rating, is very low, rock bottom at the moment. Do you think that has any impact on the president going forward? I mean, certainly he's still rallying his base, as we saw him in Atlanta just a few hours ago, but with the majority of America seemingly not in favor of his presidency, does that change his course when he's looking at what to go after next?
I don't think so, but I do think, you know, you'll probably see those approval ratings rise, actually, as you see a clearer big picture with regard to both foreign policy and domestic policy. But without a doubt, I think that the recent foreign policy moves that President Trump has made with regard to North Korea, for example, also the strike on Syria, those are actually popular moves. And I expect that we're going to see more of that type of maneuver on the world stage, sending a clear message that the United States really is prepared to act aggressively against the enemies of the free world. And I think that's actually a popular popular move actually for the administration.
Very interesting to get your perspective. Always great to have you on the show, Nile Gardiner. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.